Good morning. To our extraordinary faculty and staff, thank you for pouring your brilliance into every lecture, every question, every quiet moment of care. You have not only taught, but you have ignited to the families. You have ignited. To the families, friends, and loved ones, thank you for standing behind, beside, and sometimes carrying our graduates to this day. Your love is stitched into every success we celebrate. And every voice, including the little one, matters in encouraging us. Because you, our luminous class of 2025, matter. Welcome. Today is more than a ceremony. It's a homecoming. It's a rising, a consecration of purpose. Because what we mark today is not just your accomplishment, it's your calling. You did not simply earn a degree. You chose a path, you chose children, and you chose families. You chose a life rooted in justice, in care, in collective healing, and that choice, it is bold, it's revolutionary, and it is the very heartbeat of Erikson Institute. And just like the baby, we need to speak up. We do. We cannot stand alone in this moment because founded in 1966 by Barbara Taylor Bowman, Maria Pierce, Irvin Harris, and Lorraine Wallach, Erikson was born in the first belief that all children deserve to be seen, supported, and celebrated, that care and education are not neutral or passive, but they're powerful tools for justice, and that those who serve young children must be deeply prepared, not just academically, but ethically, relationally, reflectively. Here at Erikson, you have joined the legacy, a lineage of scholar, leader, activists, of healers, educators, visionaries. You know that early childhood is not a warm-up. It is where the foundation of justice is poured. It is where the soul of a society is revealed. You have studied the architecture of the brain and the architecture of belonging. You have confronted the inequities that shape access, experience, and outcome. You have challenged the stories told about children and families and began to write new ones with them. You've examined theory and practiced compassion. You've analyzed policy and you embodied purpose. You've questioned what is, and you dare to dream what could be. And in doing so, you have carried the mission of this place of Erikson to ensure that every child is held in systems of care, not control, to prepare professionals who not only work in communities, but with communities, to champion the dignity, the cultures, the languages, and the dreams of every family. We do not teach neutrality, we teach responsibility, we teach liberation, and so you live here not as graduates alone, but as stewards of a promise. The promise that success is measured not in prestige, but in presence, not in salaries, although they do need to do better, but in stories. The stories, the ones children will one day tell about how they were seen by you, how they were safe, how they felt loved. You chose the sacred work of kneeling beside the grieving child, of holding space for parents navigating systems that were never meant for them, of showing up in classrooms, in clinics, courtrooms, community centers with open hearts and open hands. You chose the long arc of transformation, the unglamorous, unshakable belief that the smallest voices deserve the fiercest protection. That change begins not in grand speeches, but in everyday acts of care. You chose the early years because you know that in those very formative moments, what matters most is not just what a child knows, it's whether they feel known, whether they are mirrored with love, whether they hear in every story, every touch, every routine, you matter, you belong, you are more than enough. Now, as educators, social workers, child life specialists, developmental scientists, you go forward carrying more than knowledge. You carry Erikson's mission. It is preparation that we offer you, the legacy, the community, and the knowing that empathy is not soft, it is strong. that joy is not extra, it is essential, that healing does not happen only in hospitals. It happens in playgrounds, in circle time, in whispered lullabies, and warm embraces. You carry the belief that systems must not merely be improved, they must be reimagined, and that the worth of any institution is measured by how it honors its children. This journey will challenge you, it will stretch and test you, but you're not alone. You're part of a constellation now, a community of Erikson alumni, mentors, faculty, family, who believe in your voice, your vision, your sacred work. So when the world feels heavy, and it will, let what you've learned here ground you. Let the stories of children you've served guide you. Let your love, let your justice, your brilliance light the path forward. Class of 2025, know this. You're not merely entering a field. You are transforming it. You're redefining what it means to serve. You're reimagining care as resistance, as liberation, as love in action, and you are ready. Go forward, show up fully, love boldly, lead bravely, and never stop believing in what can grow when we nurture the world with tenderness, with truth, and unwavering hope. Congratulations, beloved graduates. We're so proud of you. And now, with deep reverence and great joy, I invite you to turn your hearts toward a voice that carries both fire and light, a voice that rises not from the titles alone, but from truth lived and love practiced. Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson is more than a leader. He is a dream bearer, a justice weaver, a soul who walks boldly at the edge of what is, so that we might reach for what might be. As President and CEO of Children's Defense Fund and the Children's Defense Fund Action Council, he carries forward the luminous legacy of Marian Wright Edelman, the legacy rooted in the sacred worth of every child. He carries it not as a burden, though, as a blessing, the flame of possibility in communities too often denied their due. A scholar of systems, a pastor of people, and a steward of truth. Dr. Wilson chaired the Ferguson Commission, speaking into silence with courage, naming what too many feared to face, and doing so with grace, with clarity, and conviction. His work lives where policy meets purpose, where activism meets anointed vision, where compassion is strategy, and justice is love made public. He teaches us that justice is not an idea in the clouds. It is the story of every single child, the architecture of every choice, the echo of every yes we say to a better, braver world. He reminds us children are not broken beings in need of fixing. They're whole people, holy ones, deserving of joy, of dignity, of dreams fulfilled. And he calls you, to rise to lead not only with your minds, but with your hearts, to build not just careers, but beloved communities. We are blessed beyond belief and beyond measure to hear from him today. Please join me in welcoming our 2025 commencement speaker, Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson.
Good morning. Madam President, Mr. Board Chair, to the faculty, students, graduates, to this remarkable community of family, friends, and supporters spanning generations with the most appropriate voices on the program, not actually on the program, but making her and his interjection as appropriate. It is good for us to be here. And I stand to bring a few words in a couple of categories, and so I share them in this way. I come to bring words of congratulations to this community of scholar practitioners, researchers, leaders, social workers, and those who understand that the hand that rocks the cradle truly rules the world. Those who can appreciate that the keenest sense, as Mandela told us, the keenest sense of a society is how it treats its children. those who join with us as we stand with you at Erikson in the mission of building community so young people grow up with dignity, hope, and joy. Congratulations that you have put heart, hand, and head together to prepare for the strongest, the greatest, the most significant work that one can do, which is to make sure that we appropriately form a world that might actually help to shape the best for and of our children. Congratulations for beginning a journey, and after having put your hand to the plow, and maybe sometimes looking back, completing it and following through even through the most difficult days. But with these words of congratulation on days like this, it's also appropriate to bring words of caution. Caution. You are entering a world that is different than the one that you entered into when you came upon this work the first time. Caution. While you are preparing with appropriate diligence to your logic models and theories of change, theories of action, and theories of the moment, someone shifted all of our guiding assumptions. Caution. There's been a conversation going on before we entered this work. Those of us who have been in it for a time enough to have a few gray hairs, so we keep it cut close. And those who entered just a few years ago on graduate journeys or shifted professions and so have been in this work for a decade or so, the reality is what I face at Children's Defense Fund with the legacy that Dr. Mariana has spoken of is I now face the realities of trying to reconstruct and re-erect a world that my predecessor helped to live into and construct in between. What do I mean? The first time we saw the logo of what became the Children's Defense Fund, a child's prayer. Dear Lord, be good to me. The sea is so wide and my boat is so small. Was on the front of a 1974 report entitled Children Out of School in America. It chronicled why young people were not going to school, and it saw that because they were othered, or because they were poor, or because they were different, or because their families began before they had appropriately planned or desired, those things kept them out of school. And that report helped to make the case to a nation of what the barriers were, and that if we left the current systems in place, if we did not have more oversight and more foresight, then there would be no attainment of education that would lead to the kind of social mobility and economic mobility that is germane to the American dream and its promise. That report helped to make the case for the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act and what came to be 5 years later, a Department of Education. And 2 generations later, that federal infrastructure is in question, and those supports are not. We entered this work institutionally, creating a world where you might assume that there might be federal support and oversight. You might assume that people would be committed to the conversations about quality, and those of us who have been privileged to enter the dialogue begun by our forebears could assume that we can engage in the privileged discussions about quality, not survival, about equity, not access, about relational capacity, and making sure we had quality seats in a regional environment, or even advance to the conversation about how we might innovate. And now we find ourselves in a moment to fight, to protect, and defend even the most significant modicum of supports for our children. So while we congratulate you, we also caution you that you will need to build upon that which you have been given in order to be meet for the moment. And so we come finally with a word of caution. On the way to that, can I confess? I work in advocacy, but I'm of the church. I'm not Catholic, but I went to a Catholic undergraduate institution, so I have a resonant guilt. A month ago, my oldest son, who's 20 years old, celebrated his birthday, and I thought about his first 100 days. 100 days of brain and cognitive development that I won't get too far into because you got a speaker better than me who knows this work better than me coming after me. But I knew it was important, and so I tried to learn some things about it. I learned that if you played certain music, you stimulate the brain. I learned that you read to your child, you should talk to your child. And this is my first child of 4, so I read everything. Now, by the 4th one, you know. And so my confession is that I was because of the right timing of his birth, I was a baby Einstein parent. And see, the graduates laugh. Nobody else. They understand why this is a confession. It's a confession because I got so caught up in Beethoven and Bach and that playing and that being a part of the videos that I believe what had not been proven and what could never really be proven about these videos, that you just shouldn't let your children that young watch videos. But I invested a lot in those first 100 days. And I knew that there was significance that could happen in 100 days. And last week, I thought about another 100 days and how quickly the things that we have assumed could be lost. And so I invite you to a different moment of call as you go forth to fly forth into the world. The first time I wore one of these robes, I was graduating from what we call daycare. And the prominent song for all of these ceremonies was "I Believe I Can." Was "I Believe I Can Fly," or it was "The Wind Beneath My Wings." That was it. Wind beneath my. "I Believe I Can Fly" was more like high school. But always something about flight. On my way here, I thought about those songs as I was going up from D.C. and getting ready to come down to Chicago, and I wondered, what is the fight that we're going into? As I invite you going forth with your degrees to fight in flight, I want to suggest to you that you've got to move beyond some of the things you could have assumed. In the first 10,000 feet that we entered up into in order to get into this work, we were trying to get that proximal work close to the ground right. Make sure the relational capacity, racial equity met the moment, since we know that the diversity of those under 4 in the country is more diverse than any other segment of the population. And so the quality and cultural competence of those who provide direct practice, we've got to get right, and we study that. In the second 10,000 feet, we began to consider how these systems might interact and interlock, and whether the systems are really ready for young people, or even if in this nation we have a system of early care and learning at all. Or do we have a patchwork of things that pull together such that we have not evolved to develop a system? In the top 30,000, at the 30,000-foot level, we began to study policy and research to advance the greatest innovations for our young people, and you have been equipped for that. You can make the journey all the way up to the elevations between 30 and 40,000 feet that I had to go into with my airplane to come here from Washington, D.C. to Chicago. But the test of this moment is not those. You've got to go beyond and beyond the clouds. When I looked out of the window seat that thankfully somebody traded me because I was in the middle, I could see all of those layers all the way down to the ground. But the call at this height in this kind of moment is beyond the systems and beyond the research and beyond the practice to a sense of our own vocations. We have to argue now for the dignity, hope, and joy of our children, because it is in question. We must not fight just for federal departments. We must fight for human rights. Adam Benforado of Drexel University in Pennsylvania suggests that the right to early attachment is one of the first rights that children have, and that we must shape public policy in order to make sure they have the time to spend with mamas, big mamas, abuelitas, and fathers, so that they might have that kind of care. And so I invite you to consider, what are the spiritual and the moral rights that ground the study of your research, that ground the practice and ground the systems assessment? Because now is not the time to fight only on the ground. We must fight in flight for the rights of our children. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you are meet for the moment. You are up to the task. And so I invite you now to fight as you fly. Blessings, family.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson, for your commitment to child well-being, economic mobility, and racial justice. I am deeply honored to present you with an honorary degree from Erikson Institute. By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees and upon the recommendation of the faculties of Erikson Institute, I am pleased to recognize Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson, our honorary degree recipient. Thank you.